A punch-in effect is a great way to spice things up in a video, and it's easy to do in post. But what if you could also do it in your live streams? In this video, I'm going to show you how to get this effect with the ATEM Mini. Hi, I'm Aaron Parecki. To follow along with this tutorial, you're going to need an ATEM Mini, and you'll need to make sure you're running the latest version of the ATEM firmware. This will work with every model of the ATEM Mini, including the ATEM Mini Extreme, and it will even work with the new ATEM Constellation switchers and the ATEM SDI models. First, I'll show you how to create this effect in the ATEM, and then I'll show you how to easily trigger it with the press of a button. Before we can get started, you're going to first need to download the ATEM Software Control app. This is a free app from Blackmagic that lets you control everything in the ATEM. First, go to the Blackmagic website and click Support at the top. Then scroll down here and click on ATEM Live Production Switchers. Scroll down again and download the latest ATEM Switchers update for your platform. Go ahead and install that app and then launch the ATEM Software Control app. You should be looking at a screen something like this once it's connected to your ATEM. You can connect it to your ATEM either over USB or get it onto your network. Either way will work fine. This app lets you control everything in the ATEM, including switching camera angles as well as upstream and downstream keys, and of course your transitions. There's a feature in the ATEM Mini called the Upstream Key. This actually lets you do a bunch of different things, including green screening and also making a little circle picture-in-picture effect. But what we're going to do is use the Upstream Key to make a picture-in-picture effect. But instead of making the picture smaller, we're going to instead make it bigger. So to begin setting this up, first press the On Air button under this Next Transition section. These are the buttons for the Upstream keyers. On the ATEM Mini, you have only one Upstream key, but on the ATEM Mini Extreme, you get all four. But we'll come back to that in a little bit. So go ahead and turn this on, and that way you can actually see what you're doing in the ATEM's multi-view. Now, open up this panel on the side, which is where you'll be able to configure your Upstream Key settings. Go ahead and change over to the DVE tab, which is where we're going to make the picture-in-picture effect but larger. The DVE effect lets you scale and crop one video on top of another video. Let's go through the settings here. First, choose camera 1 or whichever camera you're going to want to use to punch in on as the fill source. This is the video source that the DVE effect will be applied to. For position, enter 0 in the box for both X and Y. That'll move the picture to the center of the screen. Also make sure your mask, shadow, and border settings are turned off. Then the magic happens in this size feature. If you want a picture-in-picture effect, you would choose a size less than 1 like 0.25, and that brings your picture down into the corner. And you can see as I'm dragging this around, it's changing the X and Y position. If you enter 1, it'll be the size of the full frame. So to get the punch-in effect, you're going to want to be slightly bigger than 1. So start by entering 1.1 here, and we'll see how that looks. So now you should see your camera scaled up by 10%. So now that the Upstream Key is set up, you can turn it on and off to get the punch-in effect. But of course, it only looks like a punch-in effect if your program input is set to the same input that the fill source is set to. So I'm going to go ahead and choose camera 1 for the program. And now as I'm turning on and off the Upstream Key, you'll see that it looks like it's punching in. But of course we want to go one step further and automate this. That way you only have to press one button to punch in and then automatically punch back out after a short amount of time. To automate this effect, we're going to create a macro which will set up the Upstream Key, turn it on, wait a little while, and then turn it off. That way when you run the macro, all these steps will happen automatically. Macros are a super useful tool for automating all sorts of things in the ATEM Mini. I have a couple other videos about macros which I'll link to down below. So go up to the Macros menu and press on Macros, or just press Command-Shift-M. You'll see this window pop up, which is a list of all the macros you've created so far. So click on one of the empty slots, and then click on the plus button and give us a name like Punch in Cam 1. Then press Record. When you see this big red border around everything, it means anything you do in the software control will be recorded into the macro to be replayed. This is very important. Don't change any settings except exactly what you want in the macro. There's also one weird thing about creating a macro, which is that you can't really see what actions have already been recorded. Also, unless you actually change a setting, that won't be recorded either. It's not like taking a snapshot of the current state. So the first thing we need to do is actually recreate all the steps we just did to set up the Upstream Key, but now do it to record it into the macro. That way it'll make sure that if you've changed the settings manually or some other way, it will always set everything back to the way you want. So what I'm going to do is basically touch every setting that I already changed to make sure these get recorded into the macro. So I'm going to click to pattern and then back to DVE to make sure that it's recording the key type into the macro. Then I'm going to click through all of these boxes again. Choose camera 1, click into this, press enter, click into this, press enter, click into this, click into this. And really important, make sure to toggle on and off the settings that you don't want turned on. So once these are all recorded, we now need to add a 1 frame delay. So go ahead and click add pause, come down here, choose 1 frame and add a pause. This basically gives the ATEM a chance to let all these settings take effect. So now you're ready to actually turn on the effect. So go ahead and press on air. That brings the key on air. Now we want to keep this on air for a short amount of time. So we need to add another pause. Go ahead and click add pause again. I want the punch in to last half a second, but I have to enter this in frames. So since my ATEM is set to 30 frames a second, I'm going to enter 15 here. If yours was set to 50, then make sure you enter 25. Click add pause. And now it's time to turn the key off. So go ahead and click on air again. We're done recording the macro. So you go ahead and click the record button to stop. And that is now all saved here. Now it's time to test this out to see how it looks. So first, switch over to the Run tab and choose Recall and Run, which makes it a little bit easier to just run as soon as you click this button. Again, make sure that your main program is set to camera 1, which is the one we're going to punch in on. Then click on your new macro and watch the magic. You should see it punch in for half a second and then go back to the regular camera 1 angle. So how do you actually use this when you're live streaming? If you have the ATEM Mini Extreme, then there are actually buttons on the top that will let you run any of the first 8 macros saved. So if you created this in the first macro slot, then you can just press the 1 button on the ATEM Mini Extreme to run it. If you have the ATEM Mini, then you're going to need to either use the macros palette in this software control, or you'll use an external controller like a Stream Deck with Companion. I'll link to a video down below with instructions of how to set up the Stream Deck with your ATEM Mini. So now what if you wanted to get the punch-in effect, but on other cameras also? Let's say, for example, you're filming a podcast with multiple people and you have close-up shots of each person. Well, this is where we can use macros again to create a new macro for each of the cameras. Basically what we'll do is go through the process of creating all of these macros again for each of the other 3 cameras. All we're going to change is the camera that is in the fill source for each macro. I'll go through this quickly so you can see. I'm going to go back to the Create tab, create a new macro called Punch in Cam 2, click record. Now I'm going to again do all the same steps I did before. Click back into DVE. This time I'll choose camera 2. Go ahead and set all these settings. Turn these on and off. I'm going to go add the 1 frame of pause. Turn this on, add another pause for 15 frames, and then turn it back off and click done. Let's do this again for camera 3. Punch in cam 3, record, toggle this, go to camera 3, press all these settings like that, turn that on and off, add a 1 frame pause, turn the macro on, add 15 frames of a pause, turn it back off, and we're done. Last one, punch in cam 4. Let's go to the DVE, choose camera 4, set the position, set the size, toggle the mask, shadow, and border, add a 1 frame pause, bring it on air, wait for 15 frames, add a pause, turn it back off, and we're done. So let's see if this works. We're gonna go back over to the Run tab with Recall and Run enabled. We're gonna choose camera 2 and punch in on camera 2. There it goes. Let's choose camera 3, punch in on camera 3. Let's choose camera 4, punch in on camera 4. And back to 1, punch in on camera 1. Look at that. If you managed to follow all the steps here, then congratulations, things should be working well. If you're seeing any glitches as you're using this, then chances are that you don't have all of the right actions recorded into the macro. Once again, you need to actually tap each setting that you want to be saved into the macro, even if it looks like you're not changing the setting in the software control. And make sure you added the pause actions in the right place. Otherwise, you might see a flicker while the ATEM is still in the middle of changing things around internally. One last thing to note, you're going to want to make sure you go up to the File menu and choose Save Startup State. That's going to save the macros in the ATEM Mini so that it comes back to the state when you reboot it. Otherwise, nothing you did will be saved. You can also go to File, click Save As, and this will actually export an XML file with all of the settings in your ATEM. That way you can back up everything to your computer and even restore your settings into other ATEM Minis. It's usually a good idea to back up your settings onto your computer at least once, especially once you've created a bunch of these macros that you're using frequently. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I'm going to link to a few other tutorials about the ATEM Mini in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.